Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Oh my goodness, if you are new here, my name is Yvonne and do I have a fun DIY for you. Spooky season. We are in spooky season and I have been seeing ghosts all over every social media there is. So I had to jump on the bandwagon and make my own version of some ghosts. So in today's video, that is what I'm sharing with you, my spooky ghosts. But along with some Apothecary jars using some decoupage paper to fit in with that spooky, spooky kind of thing that we have going on. So I wasn't sure if I was going to do these ghosts or not, and then one day I was in a Goodwill and then look what was looking at me in the face, liquid starch, exactly one of the things I needed to make these ghosts. Thrifted foam balls, we've got some thrifted dowel rod, and I had almost all the supplies I needed to make these ghosts, other than I needed to order my fabric, which was just cheesecloth. Just ordered some cheesecloth off of Amazon. And the dowel rods was a huge pack of dowel rods that we bought from a woodworker's auction a while ago. So it's nice to be able to go there and grab some. Though, if you're doing this, you can use bamboo skewers also. Just something to give the ghost some arms is what we're doing. And the styrofoam balls, you could use a balloon, you could use a ball, you can use whatever you have, just something to form the head. So I'm doing different lengths. I've got a couple different lengths, of course, for the arms, and then I'm doing some longer ones for the body of the ghost. And I have a wax paper wrapped piece of styrofoam. This is the styrofoam I use for like little nails and screws when I'm making over things, so I had some on hand. And then I'm just going to take the styrofoam ball and put it right on top of that dowel rod. This is a pretty easy craft, y'all. So now I need to place my arms on either side, and once I start adding my fabric, I can move them if I don't think it's shaping right. But we're just getting the general idea of a floating ghost. And then I know my cheesecloth is going to be way too big, and you could have picked bright white cheesecloth. I just happened to pick the one that was the off-white, but yeah, see how much fabric it is. There's a lot on there. So I'm going to go ahead and start cutting it into more workable sections. So if you know anything about my crafting, I really a lot of times just look at what somebody's doing. I can't say I totally watch their blog or read their blog, or I just kind of like, okay, I'm going to make it up as I go. I see a picture, I get inspiration, and then I go for it. So I hope you all are watching my blogs and listening to what I'm doing. So I just poured some of the liquid starch in there. I didn't even think about adding any water at this point, but I wanted to color it. And I wanted my ghost to be more aged than what the cheesecloth was. So I'm just adding some instant coffee in there. Now I'm just going to start dipping some of my section of cheesecloth into the mixture and then just wringing it out. Yep, if y'all just saw me do that paper mache pumpkin, well, I already got messy during that. Why not? Go ahead. Now, the thing about cheesecloth is once you've gotten it wet, it really will stretch. So I'm going to go ahead and stretch it out a little bit, just trying to get it to form over the ghost, making, and it's not just going to be one piece. I'm going to be layering pieces on top of each other to really give it that three-dimensional type of look, like it's floating. So yes, you just kind of stretch out what you want to stretch out. I don't want to really stretch out like the edges by any means, because I want to keep that crinkly, like aged look. But yes, yep, you're just working it, stretching it back out. It'll be a little bit larger of a piece than what you started with. So what I did is I did 4 of these pieces, kind of angling them just a slight shift to one side. I wanted it to be touching in the back. I wanted it to be touching the ground or the object is sitting on in the front. So I just kind of kept playing with it, kind of very gingerly pulling it over the arms. I didn't want the seam to be like right in the face, but oh, I just love how this aged wonderfully. And then I just kind of kept playing with it until I can envision what I wanted to see, and then let it dry overnight. And it is rock hard. It dried, y'all. So yeah. So I want to make a face. I don't want my ghost to be faceless. So I thought like this was the smallest little dabber I had. I'm like, oh, I think I can go ahead and like dab some of the black coal fusion paint on there. And then I'm like, okay, I think that's going to be way too big. So I ended up just getting a small paintbrush to do it. And I thought, okay, well, I will just go ahead and dab it, just do a little bit of a circle, and that was working out wonderfully. So that was my go-to of how to make the faces on my ghost. Not only did I make an eye, but I did the classic mouth open kind of look. Now, can I get the styrofoam ball out? I probably should have done some saran wrap, maybe, I don't know. So I was able to pull the dowel rods out. They may give you a little bit of problem, and then kind of pull the fabric apart to get the styrofoam ball out. I guess if you used a balloon, you could just pop it. And then to finish these off, I'm going to add some battery operated lights just for that spooky night effect. I thought that would just be a fun. So I've also seen where people use flour sacks, not just cheesecloths, but flour sacks, which is also a thinner material. So same thing, I need to cut it down to more of a workable size. And I'm pretty sure that I just got my flour sacks from the Dollar General store. They usually come in a 2-pack, I think. I don't think it's 3, I think it's 2. So I usually do have these on hand. But now on 2 sides of the flour sack, there is a thicker seam. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that off because I think it'll be noticeable on my ghosts. Now I did not have any small styrofoam balls. I didn't have any balloons on hand. So I kind of just looked in my stash to see what I had that I could create with these. So I had these little, I don't even remember, I think they were legs on something. But I thought that's probably about the size. It wouldn't be fun to make some small ones, though I probably have them too close together as I'm doing it right now. But I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to give them some arms also, even though when I started, I'm like, ooh, I almost forgot the arms. And then when I got to this part, I'm like, you know what? I don't know if I have enough left, but I do think it had like really gotten thicker, that maybe I should add some water. But of course, I'm like, everything's always an afterthought when you're doing something. Like, I don't think water is going to hurt this. And then I probably should have done that in the first place, because of course with the flour sacks, it wasn't like getting absorbed in quite as much as it was to the cheesecloth. I did go back in, I added water to it. That way I didn't have that slimy substance on the pieces of fabric. And then after applying it to the first one, I made them the same size as I did the first ghost ball. Duh, hello, it's a smaller ghost. So I ended up taking that piece of fabric and then cutting it into 4 squares that would be more size appropriate. Like I said, these fabrics stretch a lot when they have been wetted like this, so they are way workable. So yes, this is going to be a way more workable piece. Though they ended up being a little bit short, all I did was kind of flip-flop them. So the one was going on the back, touching the bottom. The one was going on the front, touching the bottom, and then I could just lay the other two pieces accordingly. It's all about having fun, just creating. I don't think there's a wrong way to do it by any means. And when I say you can use whatever you have in your stash to create these, I am serious. So votives hot glued on with some wooden eggs, with a wooden piece that was a ball, and then some pipe cleaner as the arm. So really you can use whatever you have to create them. It works. It works out perfectly. I had some leftover fabric, so I wanted to use up what I had. So it's always nice to have simple crafts. Sometimes they don't need to be so complicated, and this one is that. So this is Recycles paper, and it is Apothecary Jar inspired, and since I have been going to auctions, I cannot believe how much real vintage apothecary jars go for at auctions. And nope, I've never got my hands on any of them, but there is some beautiful artwork in this paper, and you can get it at Piglets Closet. I'll list the link in below if you were interested in it. Oh my gosh, easy. Look at how many jars you can do. The hardest thing is just finding the jars and deciding what label to put on them. So I just recently picked up a set of 3 of these apothecary style jars that have been painted on. So they're perfect. They're not vintage. They're not anything fancy. They actually need a label or something to cover up where somebody had ripped off tape and it had ripped off the paint job that was on it. But now deciding. So I love the amber color, so I want to kind of, since I have 3, I want to try to see if there's 3 that will kind of coincide with each other. And you most definitely do not have to cut this paper all up. You can use this entire sheet on something if you want. So I'm trying to like weave around the beautiful mushrooms and the bugs and the butterflies and the other little critters that are on here, trying not to cut into them to get to the labels that I'm searching for. And when I get it cut out, then I can go back and do a little bit more detail, a little bit closer of a cut. This paper cuts really easily. These are cheap scissors that probably came in an auction haul. You don't have to have anything fancy. And then I'm just going to use Mod Podge on the back of them. I'm not going to layer any copier paper. I think it is what it is. It is just supposed to be a thin label on a bottle. And the piece of wood that I'm using today was sent to me by a viewer. I love it. I link it. I try to remember to link it in every video, but if I forget, let me know so you can order it from Trace. She's a small business. But so I just cut out 3 that are similar in the colors and the wording, not necessarily the shape, but I think that's what makes it fun to have a set of 3. So those were bottles, the amber bottles were a bit chunkier than my next one. So there are some smaller pieces on that paper that if there would be any downsides to decoupage paper, it's hard because sometimes you have to find the right size item to put the decoupage paper on. But I'll also share with you an Etsy site that I printed these instant download Apothecary jar labels. Also, they're a little bit darker in the color, and it's the chocolaterabbit site on Etsy that I've used before for that wonderful cranky coffee one that I finally found where it came from. But yeah, so you have different options. You can order the decoupage paper, or you can print, you know, off of Etsy with the printer off of Etsy. Of course, you have to have like where you can copy and paste, where you have to have a copier, you have to have ink, you know, there's all that, or you can just order the decoupage paper. There's just two different ways of doing it, so I thought I would share them both with you here today. So these 4 clear bottles that I picked up, look at the age, look at the bubbles in them. So I was told by the lady that I bought them from that her father lived by the river, I believe St. Joe River here in Michigan, and that over years he had collected so many bottles because he had pulled them out of the river. So that is where these bottles came from. She had tubs and tubs full of bottles, and years past I had bought lots of blue bottles from her, but I was really kind of looking for the clear, the amber ones to do this craft with. Thank you so much for watching today's video. These were fun. The ease of the decoupage paper from Recycle. Wow, all you have to do is find some type of jars. You might have jars laying around. Even printing off Etsy, if you don't see something you like, you know, it's always like the size bottle. You got to find that size bottle that fits. The ghosts. Okay, let's talk about the ghost. Oh my gosh, I could make those all day long. Probably should have watered down that starch I found before I started. It didn't really matter. It all worked the same. Oh, wow. Now, you could have kept them white, white, white. I'm a primitive type of girl. I like that dirty type of, okay, almost zombie, I guess. But I absolutely love them. Putting that instant coffee in with the starch, who would have thunk? You know, it was so, I'm keep looking over them because they're so stinking cute. So, and then lighting them up. You could do a little bit of lights if you want. You don't have to do the fairy lights. You could do a battery operated candle. You know, don't do any like flames. Don't catch them on fire, but they were super fun to make. So let me know down in the comments below, have I inspired you to get out there and crafting, do some DIYs, or are you already done with your spooky season for the year? So thanks again for watching. We will see you next time, and you can see what we're up to. Bye!